Hi, people of the internet. Jen Cresswell is joining me today. Her pronouns are she and her. She's been training dogs since she was a child and been competing in dog sports since 2007 when she got her first Havanese, Missy. Missy was followed by two more Havanese, both Holly and Master Chief. With these dogs, Jen has been on the podium multiple times at both the provincial and national levels in both AAC and UKI organizations. She has since added an Australian Shepherd and a sport mix to her tribe. All of the dogs have earned their champion trick dog titles and performs in the Wolf Jocks Canine All-Stars. When Jen is not training dogs, she is a high school teacher. And today we're going to be talking about mindset. And mindset work has played a big part in her achievements, both with her dogs and in her personal and work life. Welcome, Jen. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So, first question I have for you. What experience do you have with mindset work? And why is it important to you? And why did you get a coach?
There's lots of answers for that, but I've been in a mindset coaching program for nearly 4 years now. It has completely changed pretty much everything, and I don't feel like I'm exaggerating when I say that. Not just dog training and trialing experiences, but also how I cope with day-to-day challenges in my life and also in work. And it actually has also had a really big impact on a lot of other people when you're able to gain perspective on things and help your friends. It's a really exciting thing to be able to do, and I really enjoy that I've got some tools and some skills in order to do that. With my first 3 dogs, I ended up putting an enormous amount of pressure on them and a huge amount of pressure on myself. As a musician, I'm really used to critiquing my own performance and knowing that I should just work harder and get better, and that I should just achieve things by putting the effort in. And so if I wasn't getting those results, I found it very, very frustrating and difficult to deal with. I felt like we had to be perfect. I always felt like, not necessarily that people were watching me, but it was in the back of my head that people could see me and that I needed to show them that I knew what I was doing. I could do it really well. I discovered later that I really wanted to prove to who I don't actually know that I deserved to be there. I was a good trainer. I was a good dog owner. You know, you can see me being the best. Look at me. And although those weren't in the forefront of my mind, I may not have even realized those were my thoughts. Those were the things that were causing me trouble in the background. It led to an enormous amount of training pressure. And we ended up jumping into maybe some challenges in the competition ring that we weren't ready for. The nature of public and group lessons is that the instructors really don't have a lot of time to deal with you and your team individually. They are working on the dog skills, and they're not necessarily focused on your mental mindset or necessarily some of the other procedural things that comes with competing. Right. And so I struggled when we got to the trial ring, because although I had mostly trained my dog with the skills to run the courses, I hadn't trained them in some of the other skills that they needed based on their own individual personalities and experiences. And I had not trained myself to cope with that environment either. I also found that I fought through all those struggles somehow, and I still made it to the provincial podium and the national podium several times, one way or another. I just fought my way through it, but it was a really tough road. It was very disappointing, and more often than it was joyful. And then once I had an achievement, I didn't know really why I was going for those achievements. And so it wasn't very long lived where I had to pick a new achievement and pursue that and put more pressure on to get that, you know, that fix again of achieving. So eventually,
if I can interrupt just for a quick second, I just want to say thank you for being so candid, because this is a place of being vulnerable now, because I think, you know, I don't know if it's media like TV or social media, there's this pressure that you need to look perfect and to hide those imperfections and to not demonstrate weakness. And yet there's such great strength in being vulnerable. And then there's strength that gets, I think, is a byproduct with being vulnerable, but it takes courage to be vulnerable in the first place. So thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. It's the reality of things. And I think more and more instructors, especially online, are recognizing that showing the problems and the struggles they're having is more valuable to the students, and the people they're coaching than just showing the right way to do it. We all struggle. They've struggled too. And if we cut that out, we really don't learn as much as we could. And what I discovered was that putting all this pressure on to be as perfect as possible, um, inevitably backfired. Two of my three dogs, one of them was a bit of a lemon. She had to be retired pretty early on from agility, but the other two, I shut them down. In the end, I shut them down. The challenges were too great. The pressure that I was putting on all of us was too high, and they didn't want to play anymore. A lot of that in my particular dogs, because they were very sensitive dogs, but they were what we call they stressed low. So there's dogs that stress high and dogs that stress low. My dogs would stress low. So what that looked like was it looked like they were distracted. They would sniff, they would wander away, they were unfocused, they were slow, they were inaccurate. And every so often, because agility is my primary sport, as I ran past the ring gate, they might just decide that we were done and they were heading out the gate. And other people, if their dog stress high, can find that their dog might bark a lot. They might bite. Might bite objects. They might bite the handler. They might snap near to the handler. I've seen all of those things.
Yep.
They might zoom, they might visit, or they might be dangerous as they move over and across the obstacles. They're kind of out of control. They're not really in charge of their bodies. And so they could really injure themselves when they are in that state of mind. It really was heartbreaking to me that my dogs looked like, and unfortunately the revving high is more accepted in the agility community than the low behaviors. They're the same thing. They're different manifestations of exactly the same thing, as I now understand, but it looks better when the dog is tearing around the ring like a maniac than when they're sniffing in a corner ignoring you. They're both ignoring you. They're just doing it in different ways. And it was just heartbreaking because my dogs didn't look like they wanted to do this fun thing. And if I really look at it and am honest, nobody was really having that much fun. They just weren't. It wasn't a good time for either of us. There was a lot of tears. I would even say tantrums with when we had poor results. Right? Right? And unless we did really well. If we did really well, then everybody was happy, or at least I was happy. Who knows about the dog? I was happy, right? That's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of doom and gloom, right? When you get into that state of mind, you want to quit forever. You maybe should never have dogs because obviously you're no good at this. And those kinds of spirals that really can bring you down and make it hard to cope in those kinds of environments. One of the things I did notice, though, is once I got my second dog, then my first dog did a little bit better. And when I got my third dog, my first dog did really well because I didn't really care anymore how she did because, I had ruined her anyway. She didn't really want to play with me. So however she did, doesn't matter. Well, I would come home and we used to maybe get one qualifying score out of 4 when we did competitions, when she was my only focus. And then once I had my third dog, she would qualify in every round. She'd get ribbons for everything. And I'd come home and they say, how'd the young guy do? Well, it didn't really go that well. Well, how did the oldest dog do? Oh, well, she got all of them, whatever. It didn't matter anymore, but all of a sudden she was doing really well. And it started to occur to me that maybe it wasn't her. That was the problem.
That hurts, doesn't it?
It sure does. Maybe it's me. I'd also had my husband run the dog in class before. It didn't happen very often, but that happened, and she would do really well. And then I'd just be mad that she liked him better than me. This was very early on. I know better now, but it hurt. It was upsetting. So because I was so tired of being sad and frustrated and spending so much time and money to be sad and frustrated every weekend, when I actually signed up for a herding course online, and it was flat work. There's no sheep involved or livestock. But part of that course was mindset work, because if you go into a pen with livestock and your mind is frantic and your body is stressed, your dog will also be frantic and stressed. And then the 300-pound sheep that are hurtling at you are also frantic and stressed. And that's extremely dangerous for everybody. So we went through some really small exercises, and it really gave me a new perspective on a lot of things. So then I then signed up. This person is actually local to us, which is amazing, if you don't mind me
I would
mentioning.
like to call her out. Yeah, and I want to.
Yes.
I put it on. I'll put it in the Facebook notes when I go to post this, or not Facebook, but social media post. And I was just going to say, if I remember correctly, this gal that you did this livestock herding with did become your mindset coach.
Correct. Yeah. So she started a program not long thereafter, called Dog Sport Scholars. It's Ellen Marie Lawler, and she's fabulous, absolutely fabulous. She really knows her stuff. She's really invested in learning more about everything: state of mind, nervous system work, energy, all of it. And she really applies it well to not only her own life, but the people she's coaching. So I signed up with her, and that really changed everything. One of the main tenets that is followed through her programming, and it's kind of a derivative of a podcast um, called the Life Coach School,
Mm,
which is Brooke Castillo. You can find her podcasts online, and she's more focused on business coaching
okay.
and
Okay.
life coaching, not having anything to do with dogs, but the concept came from there, where it's called she calls it the model, and basically looking at things more objectively and recognizing that it's not the circumstance that is causing your struggles. So I can give you a quick example if you're willing.
Sure.
For instance, so this was early on, before I signed up for the program. My yard was unfenced. We live on a rural property, and so there was a squirrel, 300 yards away in the tree line, and my dog went charging after the squirrel, and I was just beside myself. She wouldn't come when she was called. She was blowing me off. She was being stubborn. She was, and then in the background, which I didn't realize, is I'm a bad dog trainer. I shouldn't have dogs. My dog should behave better than this. Why did I not have her on a leash? All this negative self-talk. And one of the exercises was, we'll describe a situation where you were frustrated or upset with your dog, and describe it as if someone was watching it on video. And so
Oh,
the description really was, or it was a reporter, and they were just reporting the facts. And the description was, my dog ran away, and 2 minutes later, she came back. Right.
interesting.
Meanwhile, what was going on in my head was, the world had exploded, and all was for naught. I should never train dogs in the first place. And then when I describe
Nice
it
to
like
hear
that,
this. I thought I was the only one.
you see,
Okay.
but
Whew.
that's just it. If someone was watching that happen, they might even think, wow, look at that, your dog came right back. But that's not what I was thinking. Why was I upset? It was because of what I was thinking, not because of what was actually happening in front of me. And we do that to ourselves a lot in dog training. One of the reasons Ellen started her program is because, for whatever reason, dog training and dog sports brings all of this stuff up. Feelings of inadequacy, of insecurity, of anxiety. For whatever reason, our dogs are really good at helping us find those potholes in our feelings and thoughts.
Right. Yeah, totally. What on the flip side, Jenna Lee Gobin, who is a PhD in evolutionary biology,
Mhm.
I think that's what it is. She really wanted to do a thesis, a research document on why people feel the need to compete with their dogs in the first place. So there is a unique intertwining that happens there, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I can say now that it's been 4 whole years, and that's meeting once or more a week on Zoom with a group of people who are all interested in the same thing. We're all in different dog sports and at different points in our training. But it turns out that there are very, very few and very similar themes for everybody.
Interesting.
And it's predominantly female, which tends to be the case in Ontario anyway, in dog sports, is the clientele who do these things are predominantly female. And we all experience a lot of similar thoughts when we're doing our sports. It's been a very long time since I cried at a trial, and I thank goodness for that. It does not mean that I haven't had disappointing moments. There have been many, but I can recover now quickly and we can get on with it. It doesn't pull us down the way and pull me down the way that it used to. So that is a major leap forward. As my husband can attest, he used to come to all of my events and he was kind of the person who intervened when things were going badly. So
Well,
that's the roundabout explanation on how I got to where I'm at.
cool, cool. So, what are some common mindset challenges that dog owners face when participating in dog-related sports?
Oh goodness, I've gone through all of them, so I'm happy to explain.
Okay.
Um, First and foremost, I think the one I hear even from people I've helped train or coach is that people feel self-conscious. Everybody is looking at you, or at least that's how it feels. And if your dog isn't behaving in your version of how a perfect dog should behave, then people are judging you and you shouldn't be there. And a big part of our neurobiology, as far as I understand it, is our desperately important need to fit into a group, because that is what keeps you safe, right? We are genetically engineered to, and people are welcome to have a more experienced person than me explain this perhaps, but my understanding of it is that we really are hardwired to fit in. And when you don't feel like you fit in, it's when your brain starts jumping in to try to protect you by telling you maybe you shouldn't really be there in the first place. Let's just go back home to the couch and watch TV and not take any risks. And that's much safer than taking risks and putting yourself out there. Even the people who, sorry, go ahead.
I see that as an instructor. So my sport is rally. I eat, sleep, and breathe everything rally. And I had a couple classes graduate last night. The first class, it was their first time ever seeing a full course, and you can smell the panic on them. And I have to keep reminding them, it's not a pass or fail. It's supposed to be fun. And but interestingly enough, in that simple non-competitive environment, the mind has already created a competition. My dog must perform well. And not being, because they're new, they don't understand how much more training there is. Um, but I try to encourage them that I'll tease them and then say, listen, we're not training for the Olympics. You're not ready for the Olympics next week. So let's take some time now. Let's be gracious and cut ourselves some slack to say, you know what? We don't really know this sport very well. Guess what? Neither do our dogs. So let's try and set this up in a way that we can have as much fun as possible. But even just a simple non-competitive teaching environment, and you can see that mindset at play.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. One of the things I try to remind people, and this is hard in the moment, but the amount that you're fixated on yourself and your performance is the amount that everybody else is fixated on themselves and their own performance. And they really, unfortunately, don't have time to worry about you. And although you might logically understand that, it doesn't feel that way, especially at the beginning.
Yes.
So another byproduct of that, especially if things don't go the way you envision, where you look like a agility dog sport hero coming out of the ring, where everything went perfectly smoothly and your dog
Da,
did
da, da, da.
precisely as they should have, is this negative self-talk. Right. And that one is hard. It's really hard because now you're feeling like everyone was watching you, you didn't do it right, or you didn't do it as right as you wanted to, you don't really fit in. The group is judging you, you won't be included. Now no one wants to be your friend. It starts to spiral. And these are things that I had thought of, if my dog was just better. I wish my dog was better because if they were better, then we'd do better and everybody would be fine. Or I wish I was more experienced, or if I just worked harder, or, if I just worked harder, I would be as good as, that person over there that I admire. And until I am, then I don't belong here.
Right.
And you've got to kind of realize that you and your dog are on your own unique path, and if your dog needs a better handler, the good news is that nobody's stepping up except you.
Nicely said.
Nobody's standing in line to run your dog.
Right.
Your dog is there and learning things and expanding their repertoire and learning to be a better family member and partner with you because you chose to have that experience with them. And whether or not you are the best handler that you could possibly be doesn't matter because your dog is there because you're there. And that is
Yeah.
critically important to remember. There's t-shirts devoted to like, I'm terrible, but my dog is great, please excuse us. And I won't get that t-shirt. I won't buy that because I don't want to walk around saying, I'm sorry, I suck, everybody. Like, just so you know, I suck.
Right.
What a terrible thing to advertise for
Yeah.
yourself. You're looking
Yeah.
at that too. And
Yeah.
you're telling everybody, like, please excuse me, I don't really belong here.
Yeah. That's sad, eh?
It, I think it works its way into your head. And
Yeah.
seems funny at the time, but you know, the you have that saying on your shirt, I would say, because of something that you're already thinking, which is I don't really deserve to be here.
Right.
It sounds crazy. My first Havanese that had to be perfect and do everything. I was running the public shows with the Wolf Jocks, and I only had the one dog. I didn't know people had 6 dogs or 9 dogs or even 3 dogs. Like, I had my one little dog that is not a working dog. It's supposed to be a little companion dog that needs 20 minutes of exercise a day. And I wanted her to run the races and do all the tricks and be excited and enthusiastic and not tired the whole time.
Right.
And I was really sad when she wasn't running like the border collies were.
Right.
It actually took me a long time to look around and realize that the people with 6 dogs were picking which dog did which thing. And they picked the best dog they had to do that, or they chose not to do that event at all with any of their dogs because they didn't have a dog for it. And here I was telling my one poor little lap dog companion animal that she had to be everything.
Right.
Because I needed to show everybody that I was good at this and my dog was good and we should belong and feel included.
So
So
I'd like, if I may interject there and just explain to the viewers that Jen's choice of a Havanese as a breed has actually, because I've watched you run your dogs, I've known you for several years now, and I've watched you grow in your journey. Those Havanese turned you into an amazing trainer and an amazing competitor because you had to go outside of what the dog was bred to do to find other motivators, understand the depth and importance of basic foundation skills. That when your dogs are super rock solid in foundation skills, and what I mean by that is they can perform it under any criteria, criteria being or environmental context, meaning that there's people up close, there's unknown people, there's loud noises, there's unfamiliar locations, and they still happily do those simple basic things. And something really simple, basic behavior that has profound, can really help set you up even on your start line is a simple sit stay.
Oh yeah,
How many
absolutely.
dogs do we see out there that that really struggle with just a simple sit stay? So
Oh,
if you take the time to refine even those basic skills, you get, excuse me, are about to have dogs escape, that you'll see on a fundamental level your performance is improving.
absolutely. And when we do, often in classes, it's an obedience class, people get into that mindset like my dog has to do it. It has to be perfect. They have to do it exactly when I tell them to do it, no matter what. Doesn't matter what's happening around them. They should just do it because I said so. And when they don't, oh goodness, I would say going as far as shame, that the person is now feeling shame, they're feeling embarrassment, they're getting stressed out, and it just starts to really degrade everything. And now the dog is stressed out because they were thrown into a brand new environment that they don't understand. They can't really hear what you're saying because they're too busy trying to absorb everything else. And you're going sit, 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 and it's like the pardon a cliche, the Charlie Brown teacher, the dog's just looking at you like, yeah, and they're like, "I have no idea what we're doing right now," and you're getting more upset, and the dog's like, "This is not a fun place to be. I don't know what to do. There's too many things happening, and this person's getting really wound up, and I don't know why."
Right.
And it's a tough place to be in, and then you're feeling like everybody's watching you
Yeah.
fail.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you and I, we were building an agility course together, and River, your Australian Shepherd, was running loose in the ring while we were doing something, and you needed Riv to just stop in her tracks because I think we were trying to move a contact, and we were afraid she was going to run up the contact, and you just said sit, and I mean she just boom, she got it, and I'm like, wow, that looked great, Jen. And your response was, yeah, it took me 2 years to get that. And I thought, you know, people need to hear that, because there's this idea you take the 6 week dog training course and your dog should be able to do a sit no matter what in any contextual environment. It doesn't happen in 6 weeks. We set you up as trainers. Here's your foundation skills, but keep practicing them, because to get a lickety split flat fast sit, and it wasn't just a fast sit with Riv, it was a fast joyful sit, which I really
Oh,
look
yeah,
for, right? It's got to be
it's
joy in it.
snappy. It is a pretty sit, but she wouldn't even respond to that word reliably for a year. I haven't experienced that with a dog before, and I really was questioning my choices. Like, what is wrong with this dog? She can't even sit.
Right.
Like, really serious. It's her best thing now. It makes me happy every time I ask her because boy, that butt just hits the ground. But that was a long road, and I might have given up right at the beginning if I wasn't a little bit smarter and better than I was for the previous 3 dogs. So just carrying on with things that go on in people's heads, again, is that comparison. Like, my dog couldn't sit for a year. I was okay with that because I knew we were working on it. I still did some questioning of my life choices, but comparing yourself to another dog, you are not the same as another person. Your dog is not the same as another dog, and regardless of what you're learning, each of you is going to progress differently, and you need to access what you both need in the moment, and that is so easy to understand conceptually, and it's so difficult when everybody else's dog is sitting and staying and your dog is like rolling upside down on the floor and you don't know what to do about it. um, so inadequacy or jealousy, I've had a person tell me more than once that they asked me if I got my dogs from puppies. I said I did, and they said, oh, well, you're lucky then. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, your dogs both are really good at agility, so you're lucky that you got such great dogs. And I was like, oh boy, you have no idea. You have no idea what we have been through to get to looking like we've got it all put together. But I felt that way too, that that dog that's really good is just really good, and that person is really lucky to have such a great dog.
Right.
And that just dismisses absolutely all of the work that
Right.
someone has put into that dog. Because my dogs might look like we've got it all together. it's a long road. Even now, I'm going to be competing this weekend, and I don't know exactly what I'm going to get out of, especially my Havanese. It'll all depend on how he's feeling, but I don't get really sad about that anymore, thank goodness. Mostly for mindset work. So another thing that can really affect your mindset is a lack of preparation. Did you get enough sleep? Right? If you didn't sleep well, you've already started at a deficit the next day. If you're going to a competition, did you bring food, real food to eat?
Healthy food.
Healthy food to eat. Did you eat healthy food the day before?
Right.
Did you come with enough things for the climate you're going to be in? It's going to be really hot. Do you have ways to cool yourself down? It's going to be really cold. Did you bring enough clothing for you and your dog? Did you bring enough dog supplies? Did you forget your cookie bag because you didn't prepare it the night before or the day before or the week before? Are you prepared for what's going on in the environment? Right? Is your dog able to cope with, let's say at Paus-n-Train, there's a major road and there's lots of traffic going by and they like to honk sometimes, which is very obnoxious. At any rate, is your dog going to react to cars zipping along past them? Only 30, 40 feet away kind of a thing. If they can't cope with that, then you might find yourself very frustrated that they can't focus on what's happening in front of them. Did you remember to bring everything? I can't even explain how many times I've forgotten to bring the paperwork that my dogs needed to compete at the venue. It's happened many times. That's very stressful when I realized that 10 minutes before showing up.
Ooh.
Right? It puts me in a bad place where now I'm preoccupied and I can't be present. Another one that bothers me, believe it or not, is people who say, now I'm very competitive, I acknowledge that. People who say, oh, we're just doing it for fun. We're just doing it for fun. I define that very differently based on what I've seen. And maybe I'm wrong. There are people who are just out to have a grand old time with their dog. And boy, I wish I was one of them. It would be nice to be slightly less competitive. But I'm not that person. But what I interpret that to mean most of the time is I'm not going to put more time into clarifying any of this or improving my own skills. And that really bothers me because you're putting both of you in a situation that you are not ready for. And when it goes badly, you're like, well, it was just for fun anyway. I always wonder who's having fun.
Right. Which
of you is having fun? Both of you? Neither of you? One of you? So I am always wary when people are like, it's just for fun anyway. I'm like, does that just mean that you're not interested in making things clear for your dog or improving your own skills? And that running around with, a lack of focus and direction and being wholly unprepared for what you're doing is your definition of fun. So that one I always feel a red flag go up when I hear that. Because most of the time it just looks like two beings, a team that's just not ready to do what they're doing.
Right.
And I'm wondering who's having fun in that case.
Right.
So the opposite to that is maybe not the opposite, but having no goals, no objectives at all for going into that competition environment, but like me, having tons of expectations. So I don't have anything specifically that I am trying to accomplish other than run the course, but I expect that it's going to go very well. And being inevitably disappointed. Another mindset problem is where your goal is just too broad. I've asked people before, what's your goal? New people, what's your goal for this course? Well, to run it perfectly. And I don't think I could point to an international competitor that I know who could claim that they've had more than one perfect run in their lifetime so far. And your goal to be perfect and do it all exactly right, you can't even measure whether that happened or not. You couldn't even know. Did you achieve that? I have no idea. So the goal is just too broad. How are you going to feel successful if there is almost an impossibility that it's going to happen? Right. The other one is to have goals that are unachievable or unmeasurable. So again, oh, we're going to have fun. Can you tell me what that looks like? What does that mean for you? And maybe you can define it, and then you'll know. I did have a goal early on with my first dog when we had so much difficulty and stress, was I needed to keep her tail up. So I had to just run. I had to keep my mouth shut. These were my husband's instructions because he's wiser about some of these things than me, or at least he was. I had to keep my mouth shut. I had to run the course, and I had to keep my eye on her. And as long as her tail was up, we would keep going. And that was that was a turning point.
Really?
For us, because I had something I could measure. Whether we completed the course correctly or not, my dog's tail was up from the beginning to the end. And that was a major win. And I can leave the ring going, we won. We completed our criteria and met all of our goals. And it felt just as good, if not better, than actually qualifying. Now, we did happen to qualify as well, which tends to be a byproduct of having a better mindset, setting goals that are achievable. So another goal would be like, oh, I have to remember exactly what to do everywhere.
Right.
Okay, can you measure that? Is that even achievable? To remember every move and execute them all perfectly, especially at the beginning. So you've set yourself up to fail right from the beginning. To tell yourself to not be something, don't be stressed.
Yeah, that's just a double negative, right?
Or don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
Humans aren't designed to not do things. And you
Right.
can't set a goal of not to do something. Perhaps
Right.
don't talk. But even then, it's much easier to choose what to do. So those are I would say a lot of situations where you set yourself up to be in a difficult mindset.
Right. Right. Yeah, totally makes sense. Okay. Are we going to kick gears a little here? So can you share
Okay.
any strategies for overcoming performance anxiety or nervousness before the competition?
Absolutely.
Good. Yay.
Right. So back to the goals thing, set a goal that is not outcome based for you. You can't control the dog. As much as we like to think we can, we can't. We can't crawl into their head and tell them what to focus on and what to think about and how to feel. We can only control how we react. And so I can set goals that react or anticipate, and I can measure whether or not I did the thing I said I was going to do. And I would recommend strongly that you write them down. I actually do have cue cards.
I've
I have
seen them.
cue cards in my bag that say what I need to do for my dog before each run.
Wow.
And they're little reminders to me, and they're not run fast. They're not say all the right words. Those are not the goals that I have written down. One of my goals that I have in my cue card bag is to give clear information.
Mm,
Stay focused on my job.
mm. Very
Right.
good.
And then the other thing you can do is to write down phrases for yourself. I know it seems silly to have those. I have them. I have them now. It took me a
They
long
work.
time to, oh, they do. And so I have a list of phrases to remind myself and keep me in a mindset that works. And having just one, maybe that one isn't going to work for you that day. So having 10 or 20 different phrases to look at to remind you how to keep your focus in a spot that is useful and productive for you. And then maybe one of them will work on that day, and it'll help to calm you down and refocus your energy. So that's definitely a huge strategy. You might feel more competent. I don't know you can guarantee that you'll feel confident, but you can definitely feel like you have a grip on what is necessary in this moment with this run. All right. But the really critical thing is not to trick yourself. I'm not going to write a phrase. I might write a phrase that says, the connection to my dog is the most important thing. That might be something that'll help me remind myself to just take a breath, and I can connect with my dog, eye contact, my attention, where my attention is focused, I can do that whether we run the course well or not. And
Right.
so I can come out of the ring saying, I maintained that connection the entire run. Did I get a ribbon? Maybe not. But I feel like I met my goal. My goal was to stay connected to her. If I did my job, I can usually come out of the ring feeling pretty darn good about that. The dog's got to just do their job.
Right.
That's a big one. You've got to leave them to do their job. And hopefully you've taught them how to do their job really well. You'll find out pretty quickly. But the only job you can control is yours.
Right.
So yeah, not tricking yourself. Like I could trick myself and say, if I'm just happy, just be happy. Maybe that's my phrase. I don't feel happy. Reading a phrase that says be happy isn't going to make me feel happy because I don't believe it. Right. And so writing down things that I don't believe is not going to work. I have to find things that I can remind myself of that I believe right down deep in my core, because my brain won't be fooled.
Right. No, it's true. The subconscious, can't be tricked.
Absolutely. Getting super organized is another one. If you're heading to an event, packing ahead of time, having the schedule ready to go, having all your food and whatnot prepared. I think I'm going to chat about that maybe a little bit later. But not leaving anything to the last minute. The more organized you are, the calmer you'll feel. So that's an amazing strategy. It took a long time to start packing the car the night before. And I used to live in an apartment, so packing the car involved putting everything onto a dolly, taking it into the elevator, going down into the parking garage, walking across the parking garage, loading the car, going back upstairs to get the second load. It was a lot, which is why I avoided doing it. And then we'd end up frantic and late.
Right.
And we'd be missing things. Oh no, I didn't bring water. Where's the leash? I didn't bring treats. I don't have any food. A lot of these places aren't near food. If you don't have food, then there is no food. So it's okay. I'll just be hungry all day. That's not good for your mindset. It's not good for your ability to think.
Yeah.
I would recommend if you go to a site, if you're going, especially to a new site, that you don't bring your dog out of the car right away. You leave them in the car, you get out, get the lay of the land, figure out where everything is, what you need to do, choose your location if you're going to park your car, or choose where you're going to set up your crates, and do that all ahead of time so that you're not trying to manage yourself and your dog in an unfamiliar space. We did a seminar on this one, having a little toolbox. So like you said with the sit, having a little toolbox of behaviors or tricks or cues or any kind of pattern with your dog that that your dog knows really well, and they have to love it. So you have to build it up and train it somewhere else, in your house, in your yard, in public somewhere, but not at the competition site, that they could do no matter what. So that is really important. And you probably know what your dog's triggers are. Maybe it's cars, maybe it's other dogs running. My Aussie is very sensitive to other dogs that bark frantically, and she gets very high. So I have a series of behaviors. I have go-tos for when she gets upset about barking. Here's what I'm going to do. So I don't get upset that she's barking because I know what to do.
Right.
And I'm not stuck. When my Havanese is not interested in running at all, I have a procedure for that. I've got a process for all of these things. I've got little tricks and tips, and sometimes it's literally dog tricks to get them refocused on me. And put them into a familiar space. So that can make a huge difference, because you should already know what kinds of things might set your dog off. You might not know all of them because things might be new, but I bet you know many of them. And you could be prepared to deal with that instead of being surprised that it happened.
Right.
Let's just assume that it will happen instead of
precisely. Yeah. Assume it will. And then
Yeah.
it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
And you have game plan.
Even during a run, if you know that your dog gets distracted. My first dog used to stand at the top of the A-frame and look around. That was one of her things. One of many things that she did that drove me crazy. But after a while, I kind of knew it was going to happen, and it didn't really bother me as much.
Right.
In the middle of a competition run, I didn't have a lot of strategies for that one. I would know a little bit better what to do with it now. I'd be training it a little bit better. But
Right.
if you come to expect it, then you won't necessarily be as upset about it or as
Right.
surprised.
Right. Totally. I totally agree.
Another great one, because stress happens, is actually to move your body. Don't go back to your car. Maybe if you need to have a good cry, go back to your car. Have a good cry. That's okay. It happens. Happens. I
Part
would
of the
say it
journey.
happens. It
Mhm.
happens to more people than you think.
Right.
But move your body. Your stress needs an exit. And so before your run, take a walk around with your dog. Plan enough time to do that. After your run, take a walk with your dog. Give yourself a big hug. If that feels weird, go find a quiet, private spot. Go sit in your car. Give yourself a really tight hug. That can work really well. Tapping, if you're familiar with tapping exercises, you can Google those. They're on YouTube. They are calming behaviors, and people don't necessarily notice. I could be doing it right now. You'd have no idea. Might
Right.
even just look like a nervous tick.
Right.
And you could be tapping, which will calm you, or you can learn to calm yourself using those techniques. Breathing deeply. We tend to breathe shallowly when we start to get amped up. So
Mhm.
taking the time to breathe deeply. This all sounds kind of, I think I would have kind of dismissed a lot of this early on, but
So
it can
if
really
I can
make it.
interrupt. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was watching a TED Talk not long ago, and it was a gal who was a psychologist. So that means she studies psychology. I think that's how it goes. I always get them psychiatrists. They actually do one-on-one with clients. I think psychologist studies the science behind psychology. And she was being asked about how to calm oneself, and she said, I finally made it to the breathing train. She said 10 years ago, when everyone talked about deep breathing, she says, like, no, nah, just no, it's too hocus pocus. So what she discovered was there's actually nerve endings on the lungs themselves that communicate with parts of the brain that projects the messaging of calmness. So when when you breathe deep, you can't breathe deeply when you're nervous or fearful. So when you're
Yep.
taking the time to breathe deeply, you're now tripping up those, activating those nerve endings that now communicate with the brain that says, "Okay, I'm chilling."
Yeah.
So
And we're finding, I think more and more, the science is finding that the body is communicating with the brain and not the other way around.
yeah, right,
So figuring out how to calm your system will
right,
actually help you to calm your brain.
right.
Right.
So
And
cool.
having, again, referring back to your phrases and refocusing and reminding yourself, hey, what's actually important here right now? Um, once you've calmed your body, you can now go back into thinking mode, and you can remind yourself of what the priorities actually are. The other thing is to give your dog stress relief time as well. Okay,
Mm,
take them for a little jog to help them move their body, give them something to chew on. Use a treat scatter. So have a little fistful of treats and let them sniffle the grass. I promise it will not. If you tell them that that's what you're doing and that they should be looking for treats in the ground, then they'll learn that that's the activity you're doing right now. They will not learn that everywhere you go, they should be snuffling the grass. So it depends on the dog. Some have more trouble with that than others. Mine do that when they're stressed.
right.
And it's a calming activity.
And it's a calming activity.
Correct. Yes. So setting them up to do that when they're in a high arousal state
Yep.
is incredible, because it helps bring them down as well. And if they come down, then you can also come down. Bringing a Kong along with you and a cooler, maybe. Just going for a sniffy walk. Just putting them on a long line of some kind and just sauntering around. Like, your place is great for that because they have that huge backfield. And I find anywhere I go, any event, I take my dog all the way around the building and just let him check out whatever he wants to check out.
Right.
And that helps him to feel safe as well.
Yeah.
I would bring distractions to help me. So that's another strategy. So get your phone out, play Candy Crush or whatever. Do a crossword puzzle, watch non-related videos, read a book, do something where you're not fixating
Mm,
on the events that are happening around you. Give yourself some time off to do that. And don't shortchange your preparation time. One of the hardest things that I have to do is to say no. And so when they're screaming for volunteers, and I help organize the events at Paus-n-Train, so we really do need volunteers a lot of the time. It's really critical. But being secure enough to say, I need this time right now, where my dog needs me right now. I'm not going to go do that thing. I'm not going to go visit with my friend right now because my dog actually needs to go for a really long decompressing walk, and so do I. Right? Is stuff that you've got to have that ahead of time. What do I need? What does my dog need? And make a plan to make that happen. So that can really shift how both of you are feeling at the place that you're at. Then another thing you could do is checking the running order. Most dog sports have a running order posted, and make sure that you know when you're going and give yourself enough time to get ready to go. Nobody wants to be grabbing a leash, grabbing a dog out of a crate who's half asleep, hopefully, and charging to the ring, and then 1, 2, 3, go. That's not fair to anybody, and you're not setting yourself up for success. Have I done it before?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Too many times, right?
Many times.
Yep.
So that's how I know.
Right.
Yeah, and another thing you can work on is visualizing, especially for agility. You might be looking at 20 different moves you need to make between the beginning and the end, and that does not count getting into the ring and coming out of the ring. So maybe 30 different moves that you need to make altogether, and there's waiting time too. You should be visualizing the whole process without your dog. You might see people walking in circles beside the ring, not in the ring, but beside the ring, actually going through their head and running the run. Your brain doesn't know the difference between actually running it and visualizing. So I can run that, I can walk that course as many times as I want to in my head. But once you feel like you finally got it down, stop. Go get your book, take your dog on a sniffy walk, and stop visualizing, stop obsessing over it before you run, because you've given yourself enough time. You can go through it once or twice more in your head. Give your dog something to focus on. Maybe you've given them a treat scatter. Don't do that near the ring. That's not fair to the other dogs. But give them a treat scatter so that they're not wondering what you're up to, and you're doing your visualization before you go in again. So you're just reminding yourself. Lots of lists. I've got lists in my phone for things I need to pack so that I don't have to remember. Having, again, the running order and the schedule for the day printed out so that I don't need to ask anybody. I don't need to keep going. I do tend to pace. I go back and forth from the admin tent or the admin table 100 times in a day. But if I have it on my phone, I don't need to keep doing that. I can check and then put it away and stop worrying about it. Other things, let's see. Pack at least the night before. If you can do it sooner than that, even better. And pack yourself good food, filling food, healthy food. I find I can't handle anything heavy. Even a sandwich is maybe a little bit too much, especially on a hot day. So I usually pack lots of vegetables if I can. And lots of drinks, like electrolyte type drinks, so that if I'm starting to get a headache.
And for the dog.
And for the dog, correct.
Yeah,
yes.
It's hot. It's a good idea to have electrolytes in their water so that they can stay hydrated.
Yeah. Check the location. How long is it going to take to get there? Are there, leave in enough time to account for delays so that you're not stressed driving in? I've seen lots of people come like just charging through the property on at the last second because they're late. That's dangerous for the people who are already there, and it's causing a lot of anxiety for you. Right. If you're at this point, if you're late, you're late. Don't drive like a lunatic.
Easier said than done.
It's true. The other things you can do to help yourself is to travel with somebody who actually knows what's going on. Ask if you can ride with them or meet them somewhere, or ask to meet them at the venue. Maybe your coach will be there. Right. One of the greatest things I did, especially with my sensitive dog, but I think this would benefit anybody, is I actually messaged the organizer and asked them if I could come to the venue ahead of time, not on the weekend, especially if it's a new place for us. I either get there early enough to take a big walk around and just let my dog check everything out, figure out where all the mouse holes are so that they can determine that there are no longer mice there and it's not something that they should be worried about. And even indoor venues, I've gone there the day before, and in a lot of cases they're setting up the day before, so they appreciate an extra pair of hands to move a couple jumps, and in exchange they will let you walk your dog inside the ring sometimes. That your dog can investigate all the things inside the ring. Of course, you don't want them to potty inside the ring. That's a bad idea. But to be able to let him check everything out ahead of time, and me to check everything out ahead of time, is absolutely, in my opinion, critically important. And it's something that a lot of people don't bother to do. They just show up with 10 minutes to spare, and it's just a big shock to the system for everybody. And it's no wonder that things don't tend to go as well as you'd like.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
well,
yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Showing up way early so that you can just do that and just look around and figure out where everything is and just get the lay of the land. It really can make a huge difference.
Very good. All right. So how can dog owners maintain focus and concentration during their training sessions and competitions?
Enter the cue cards again.
Right.
Determine
That's a theme.
Determine your goal. And it should be a goal that is measurable and achievable. Right? Even if you do everything perfectly and your dog does everything perfectly, in agility, you might be called on a contact fault. And you can be absolutely positive, you have video evidence that your dog did not miss the down contact on the dog walk. And it doesn't matter. What the judge calls is what the judge calls, and you just get to deal with it. I've been on both sides of it where they didn't see something that happened. And I've been on the other side where they did call a fault and there wasn't a fault. They're not going to review your video. We are not the NFL.
Right.
Right? There's no video replays. And so you can't even control if you run the course and cue.
Right.
It might not happen even if you do everything perfectly. So you need something that you can measure, that you can feel good about when you come out, or create and know whether or not you achieved it, right? If you can't say what it means to have fun in your run and you couldn't measure it if you tried, then how on earth are you going to know if you did it?
Right.
And it's really easy to fixate on things that didn't go well if you have no idea how to measure things that did go well.
Right.
And I'm terrible at tracking. I'm working on it, which is one of those mindset things. I am not bad at tracking. It is a skill that I'm working on.
Right. I've read a book recently by Jim Quick called Limitless, and he adds in a single word to the end of those sentences, those self-deprecating sentences. And the word is yet.
Yet.
I'm not good at tracking yet. And I
My
love
dog
it.
sets at contacts for now.
Right.
We haven't mastered contacts yet.
Right.
Absolutely, because that is all mindset.
Yeah. 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 Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing is to have that tracking system. So again, for me, it has to be right now. It has to be so simple. It's a list. In case of my Aussie, we knock a lot of bars where we used to, and all I did was have a check mark or an X. Did we knock bars or not? And that was my tracking system, because doing it and getting in the habit of it was more important than tracking every single little thing. Because if I was tracking every single little thing, I wouldn't have done it. I just not bother. So I either wrote we knocked bars or we didn't knock bars. And it might feel like she always knocks bars everywhere we go. But if I look at my list, actually, we haven't knocked bars in the last 6 runs we've done. We just knocked one this time. Right. But it would have felt like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
Here we are knocking bars again. This is never going to get better. No, this is obviously I've failed forever. And this dog is never suited to be an agility dog, and I should never have bothered trying in the first place. And we spiral all the way. Oh yeah. But having that tracking system, you can look and say, actually, it's not quite as bad as I thought.
Right.
And if you really are knocking bars, let's say, in every single run and you don't know what to do about it, go get help.
Mm-hmm.
Find somebody who is more effective than what you're doing right now and see if they can help you solve your problem.
That's really good advice. So it seems obvious, but yet it's not.
No, absolutely not. What I can say actually is that I have a what we call a backside problem. My Aussie,
Self, Jen?
not on myself. It's the backside of a jump and agility. So the dog has to ignore the easy route, which would be to go with you forwards over the jump, and they need to go out and around behind the jump, the backside of the jump, and jump in sometimes towards you. And my Aussie and I struggle like mad with that. And I actually finally I've been through many instructors with lots of different pieces of advice that just didn't quite work. And this year, several months ago, someone gave me an idea that is actually working. And I've been doing this for a very long time. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I've unlocked a new achievement level. I had to keep looking for help until I finally got the help I needed.
Right. Right. Yeah. So what role does confidence play in a dog's performance in sports? And how can we cultivate it?
Ah, well, your confidence is important, but your dog's confidence is critically important. But it can be achieved again through goal setting, careful goals, tracking those goals in whatever way that you can, and not skipping. What you want to do once your dog goes up and over the A-frame is to just go running into the practice ring and start putting it into big sequences and like, look what we can do now. Achievement, check. It's officially done. And skipping the step of helping them figure out how to do that thing in a larger context is really important. So you might also notice that your dog is going really slow. Well, when they have to think, same with us, if we have to think about a process,
Yeah.
you know, if you got into a car in another country and the steering wheel's on the other side and all of the knobs and buttons are in the wrong place, you wouldn't be able to just jump in the car and drive away. You'd have to sit and like look through everything and figure out what's going on, and you'd be going slower, and your dog is the same. Until they're feeling super confident with the skill, it won't kind of go to the subconscious level and it won't be as fast.
Right.
So pushing them through that to make them faster when they're not ready to do that yet is going to impede your progress, which is exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
They will speed up and they'll get happier as those processes start to become more automatic for them, as long as all your training steps are really clear and simple and easy to achieve, you know, minimal difficulty increase.
Right. Totally.
And stop comparing yourself to where the other person is, because my dog didn't sit for a year, and we're okay. We're still okay.
Right? Yeah. 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 So, what are some effective ways to manage those setbacks or disappointments for both the dog and the
Right. Right. Well, a lot of people say my dog gets upset when they're wrong. And again, this might be a conceptual thing, but how on earth do they know that they're wrong? How did they know that they did 1, 2, 5? You're the only one who knows they did 1, 2, 5. So if your dog is reacting to being wrong, how did they receive the information that they're wrong? So you might anticipate that. So here's again, to manage disappointments is to try to anticipate them. My Aussie may or may not hit her contact. It's something we're working on. It was a long road. She got an injury. It now is a different and longer road, and we're coming back from it. But when that happens, I know what I'm going to do. If my dog sniffs, here's what we're gonna do. If they miss their weave poles, I'm going to move on, or I'm going to stop, or we're going to leave the ring. If I know how I'm gonna react, then I actually won't be as disappointed, or I might not be disappointed at all.
especially if we catch ourselves, right? If we have a plan and recognize, let's say my dog, weave pulls is not their strength, and they're low confidence, and they just put the brakes on and they don't want to go in. If my game plan going into the ring was, if I see that behavior, we're just going to exit the ring and reset, because I want to safeguard my dog's energy and attitude, because I don't want to make it toxic by my negativity. But yet, if I had that goal and I left the ring, and I would secretly in my head go, yes, I did it. I remembered
Yep. Yep.
to stop
When they didn't take the weave
and
pulls, I didn't do
safeguard.
what I thought I
Yeah,
should do, which was
right,
to start them again and make them do it. They know how
right,
to do this. Why aren't they doing it? Nope. As soon as they missed that entry, we just ran right out of the ring and we got cookies.
right.
And you will be so proud of yourself for
Yeah,
following through on the
yeah,
goal
I
that you
totally
set.
see that.
And
Totally see
you
that.
might you might be a little bit sad that it wasn't perfection like you were hoping it would be, but you will be feeling pretty good that you followed through on the thing that you planned to do. So the other thing is, if you don't know why things happened, especially video everything. Okay, after a disappointing run, more often than not, when I watch the video, I'm like, oh yeah, that was me. You know, rotten dog took those bars down again. Nope, nope, I turned too quickly, took off too soon, didn't make proper eye contact. Oh, look, it wasn't really her. So rather than getting upset, I'm going to have a little pity party. And you should be sad, be disappointed, and then shake it off, watch
Right,
your video, figure out what actually happened, and then make a plan to move on.
right.
Right? Negative self-talk versus the yet, right?
Yeah,
Oh, we just can't get through a course without knocking bars
yeah,
yet, right? That already gives you a positive
yeah,
emotion,
totally.
right?
Yeah.
But taking that time to be disappointed. There was a beautiful thing. It was at an event I was at about a month ago. This whole team of people who were very, very seasoned, skilled agility handlers. They're on, their second, third, fifth, seventh dog. And on their shirts, it said hashtag 24 seconds. I'm like, what is hashtag 24 seconds? And they said that they created that when they all had newish dogs and they didn't know what was going to happen exactly in the agility ring, whether it was going to go really well or whether the dog was going to lose its brain because it was young and in a new environment. And so they were all allowed to quit agility forever and give away all their dogs for 24 seconds.
I like it. I
So
like it.
they walked out of the ring and had a 24 seconds. I should never have done this. What was I thinking? I'm a terrible handler. I'm a terrible dog owner. I'm going to quit agility forever. Okay, that's done. How are we going to proceed with the next thing? And so they had
Right.
their little
Oh,
pity
very
party. And
good.
the pity party is important. You got to get that out and then look at your goals.
Right, 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 right.
Absolutely.
All right. Uh, so can you discuss the concept of mental toughness? Now, I would never have thought to ask this question, so I did have to seek sources, and I thought, what is mental toughness? So perhaps you can kind of explain that as well in the context of dog sports, and how can it be developed?
I would actually argue against the concept. So to me, mental toughness is kind of an ability to not be affected by anything.
Right, and push through no matter what.
Yeah, and just like who
Human.
cares? Who cares what everybody thinks? Who cares how my dog does? Well, I care. I care a lot. And I get disappointed when I have some expectations that don't get met. Absolutely. So am I more mentally tough now than I was before? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I'm actually more sensitive to everything
Ah,
now because I
more
have a different
aware.
perspective on it.
Mm,
Instead of why is my dog doing this to me, it's more, it's what can I do to help you right now?
Right.
That shifts everything.
Oh, it does.
So I don't think you need a thick skin to do dog sports. You need concrete goals,
Right.
right? And concrete expectations that both of you are trying to meet. And
Right.
again, you can't really control whether or not the dog meets them in the moment, but you can take note and say, apparently this is something we need to work on,
Yeah.
and figure out why you thought it was going to be fine and it wasn't.
Right.
If you can, and if you don't know how to do that, get help. Get
Right.
someone to weigh in and try to help you with that. You can meet every single one of your goals and not qualify, not get any kind of ribbon, not end up on the podium, and walk out of that place feeling like $1,000,000 because
Yeah.
you hit all of your goals.
Yeah.
You're feeling really good about it and you didn't get a single ribbon. And it turns out that the ribbons and the titles stop having that impact when you're setting your own goals, because ribbons and titles are goals other people have set.
Oh, wow. It's true.
It is
Oh,
true.
wow.
And
Yeah.
that's things that other people have determined are important.
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, let's pretend that you really don't care whether your dog ever learns how to do a contact behavior. You could run jumpers the rest of your life, be perfectly happy if you've decided that that's not what's important to you.
Right.
So jumpers is jumps and tunnels.
Right.
There's no teeter totter, there's no dog walk, there's no A-frame. And you could decide that it just doesn't matter. And are you going to now be sad that you're not going to do any standard runs that have those obstacles in them? If you've made a decision that they don't matter to you and you're happy just doing this one type of course instead of all the other ones, I don't think you're going to be sad about that. If you are sad about it, then you need to reevaluate your goals and work on training the thing that you need in order to achieve what you're trying to achieve.
Very good.
But all those things start to fall away when you've got your own goals
Right.
for your and for you. And another thing that's really helped is actually approaching setbacks with curiosity instead of trying to figure out whose fault it was. It was the dog's fault. It was my fault. Somebody dropped a treat in the ring. It's their fault. A bin fell over and banged and startled my dog, and it's that person's fault. Two dogs got into a fight,
Right.
into a disagreement ringside. The dog behind me was screaming its head off while I was running. It's their fault.
Right.
And instead, if I approach some of those things with, I wonder why that happened, or I wonder what I can do to help my dog with that, or I wonder if there is a skill we're missing here and I'd like somebody else's opinion, it switches you out of whose fault is it that bad things are happening and more into a what do we need and how do we get there.
Right. Right. Very good. So, are there any mindfulness or visualization techniques that dog owners can use to improve their performance?
Absolutely. So we could do it right now if you're willing.
Ooh.
There's a few things that we don't even need to get up for. So grounding is
Yep.
one. So put your feet flat on the floor.
Yep.
Feel your, as my instructor says, your sit bones, the bones in your butt as they connect to the
Sitting
chair.
bone. Yep. Yep.
It can be helpful if you can get your back against something. So if you can sit back in your chair, that works as well. You can place your hands flat on the surface around you, and
Mhm.
you could even close your eyes and just feel the ground under your feet, feel the chair under your butt,
Mhm.
feel the chair against your back,
Mhm.
push your arms into the arms of the chair. You could try hugging yourself so you get more of a tactile sensation, and just take a moment to just be really connected with the space around you. And that can really bring you down and bring that stress down. Another one is orienting, and this one really works beautifully well. When we've done this before in our mindset classes, we tend to stand up,
Okay.
and the weirdest thing happened. So I stood up, and all three of my dogs jumped up because we were doing something in the training space.
Right.
Or at least they thought we were. So they were
Right.
all excited, ready to go. They had been lying down and now we're ready to go, very excited. And so you can do this right now where you're sitting. Look down at the floor
Okay.
and just really slowly let your eyes move to the wall and follow the walls all the way around.
Oh,
And then
interesting. Yeah.
looking behind you. So behind is really important, it turns out. So turn yourself around and
Okay.
make sure you can see exactly what's behind you. Try to notice the sounds that are happening or the smells. Look up at the ceiling and just really slowly take in everything. Our
Right.
dogs kind of do this naturally. When we get to a new space, the first thing they do is start smelling everything.
Right.
And we usually stop them.
Right.
And what happened when I got up to do this in my agility space is the dogs that were running all around me, ready to go with their activities. By the time I was done staring at the ceiling, I looked down and all three of them had laid down.
Huh.
And they never do that in that space. But I feel like they really felt that I had kind of calmed myself
Right.
and really felt oriented in the space. And they all just kind of went, "Ah," and they
Right.
all laid down, all three of them. I was like, whoa, okay. Amazing. And then when I went back to my chair, they all jumped back up again and off we went. But when you get into a new environment or a new space, or even just the trial space that maybe you're familiar with, and you take a second to really slowly look around, take in everything, no rush, you'll automatically feel a little bit calmer, a little bit more oriented in the space that you're in. So it's pretty cool, especially looking behind you. That's a big one too. Doing a body scan. I love that one. So what you could do right now is check in with your toes. What I like to do with this is actually clench them up and then I relax them. So if I
Hmm.
clench my toes and then I notice that I've relaxed them completely, and then I clench my feet and my ankles and I relax them completely, and I just work my way up. Now you could just check in with each piece of you from bottom to top, top to bottom, left to right, however you want to do it. I like to squeeze and unsqueeze, and I work my way all the way up my body. And by the time I'm done doing that, which might take a minute or two,
Right.
everything has relaxed a little bit.
Right.
If you know how to do tapping, or you do some Googling on YouTube videos for tapping, that's another one that can work really well. If you know anything about meditation or just deep breathing, you can try that. Another really cool one is to actually just describe something to yourself. So if you grab an object that's near to you, I'll take this water glass. If I'm starting to get wound up or spin,
Yeah.
I can describe this to myself in excruciating detail. It is smooth. It has a chip in it. It's reflective. It's disorienting the reflection of my fingers, or refraction, I suppose. It is cold. It has some sediment underneath it. I can put it on my face and feel what that feels like. I can smell it. I can taste it. And what I've done is I've distracted myself from whatever the thing is that is upsetting me, and kind of refocused, and that'll bring everything kind of down. So that's actually a really cool strategy that nobody needs to know you're doing.
Right. Right.
And so those are just really nice ways to calm your system down.
Yep.
And then you use your goals and your strategies and your cue cards to then
Yep.
help you focus on what it is you're doing. Um, and again, the visualization. Some people have a hard time with visualization. It is something that you can practice. And so, visualize an apple and describe it. Let's start with that kind of a thing, right? And then
Right.
if you get to, running the course, I visualize the course, but I also visualize walking to the ring, walking
Yeah.
through the,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
where's my dog going to be? When do I take my leash off? And I can run all of that through my head several times. So the visualization of what your job is really important, and that can really help you focus and concentrate on what needs to happen, instead of getting really distracted by your emotions or the stress or what's happening around you.
Right.
Yeah, so those are some great things. They've all helped me in
Cool.
various circumstances.
Cool. I took a course with Dr. Judson Brewer. It's called Unwinding Anxiety, and he is both a clinical psychologist, psychiatrist, and a neuroscientist. So it's really cool to hear them talk about what happens physiologically with your body as you're doing these grounding, orienting, body scan exercises, right? There's some really neat science behind it. All right, so how can dog owners maintain a healthy perspective on competition and avoid burnout in the dog related sports?
Do all the things we've just talked about.
Right, yeah.
But one of the big ones is figuring out your, what I feel is figuring out your why.
Oh,
Why, why are you training? Why
yeah.
are you going to class?
Yeah.
Why are you competing? One of the things that I did at a big event 2 summers ago was I knew we were having a lot of weave pull problems. And I knew that they probably wouldn't be fixed. They're fixed now, by the way. It's taken a year. Yes, thank you. I'll say fixed in that it's meeting my criteria at the moment.
Right.
There's room for improvement, but I am currently satisfied with where we are at. I'm calling it a win for the moment. But I knew that regardless of whether or not our weave pull performance was going to be perfect, it was highly unlikely that me and my dog would be a competitive team in that environment. We were not making the top 10 or the top 3. And that it's not negative thinking, that's just, that was fact. Is regardless of how brilliantly she did, it was unlikely based on the competition that we were going to come anywhere near the podium.
Right.
And so I really was trying to figure out, why on earth am I going to this thing? Like, what are we going to get out of it? And so one of the questions I actually asked myself is, well, what would I enjoy about this venue and about this event if I didn't bring any dog?
Hmm.
And I know that I would really enjoy watching these really highly skilled competitive teams running the courses. Well, maybe I shouldn't just be sitting in my car or at my chair then. I should maybe go watch some of the runs without my dog, because that's something I would enjoy if my dog hadn't been there. And I made time. It was a 4-day event. I made time every single day to spend time watching all these really incredible teams, and it really enhanced my experience, because one of the reasons I was there is because agility is cool.
Yeah.
It's really fun to watch.
Yeah.
And if I didn't spend any time watching, as I was sitting there visualizing my course for 3 hours, I would have really missed out on something that I find to be great. It's one of the good reasons to go do the sport, is to watch other really high level teams do it. So my why, like, what am I getting out of it? But what is my dog getting out of this?
Right.
And if I can figure out all those whys, like for instance, if you love going to trials because it's a really great social opportunity, or you go to your class because you love your classmates, then getting the cue or running a perfect run is not why you're there.
Right.
And getting fixated on that when you're actually there because you love to see people and chatting about dogs and loving on your dogs. If that's the reason you're there, then remembering why you're there can really help you stay focused on what your purpose is.
Right. Very good. Very, very good. Hmm.
Another thing is to make sure you just know what your job is. You can't control your dog. So
Right.
know what your job is and walk into that space every single time, determined to do your job the best you know how to do your job.
I'd like you to repeat that, because I think especially as green meaning new,
Yep.
novice people coming into the ring, it's their first couple of trials. You know what? Forget that. Even in a non-competitive context, I see it come up against it a lot amongst pet owners as an instructor, that that you can make your dog do things, and that's not. I mean, you can if they're forced on the end of a leash, or you're using electronic devices that scare the crap out of them or cause punitive pain and punishment.
Or they're hungry and are compelled to do what you're asking because you have their required nutrition.
Yeah, so it's so yeah, you can make them, but in the end, the results are probably not what you're going to hope for.
Are you both going to end up being glad you're doing this thing together?
Not likely.
Right? So do your job the very best you know how to do it. Show up, as I've recently reset some of my goals. One of my new goals now is to show up with excellence.
Ooh.
And I have lots of criteria. So I don't, that's not a woo woo, mythical experience for me. For me, that means have my stuff prepared and packed the night before, show up in enough time to orient and figure out where everything is, to get into the right crate placement, to park my car in the right place, to check the running order, to take my dog for a pee, to stretch them and warm them up, to do the practice jump, to walk the course. All of those things is my version of how I would show up with excellence, to be a good co-competitor. Right? How can I be an excellent peer? To me, that's part of showing up with excellence. Am I successful in all of these things? No, not always. In fact, probably infrequently. I'm never going to likely hit every single one of these every single time, but that's what I'm aiming for.
Right.
And if I do my job to the level I would like to do my job, then the rest of it is mostly beyond my control. And I can do as much as I can to mitigate and improve my dog's performance, but at the end, I can't control it. I can control me. So I show up doing my job the best I know how to do it, and the cards fall where they may.
Right. Right.
So to that end, video everything. So we're kind of going over a lot of the points again, is video absolutely everything. Take your time and be disappointed. And then shake it off, review your video, figure out maybe what actually happened, what needs to happen next. Is it something you can fix now, or is it on your training list now? Which, by the way, your training list is never fulfilled.
Never, yeah, it doesn't end.
Ever be finished. As soon as you got those weave poles and you move on to the teeter-totter will be finished and your weave poles will have fallen apart again.
Yep.
It never ends, I'm afraid. So be warned.
Yep.
There's always tweaks to make. So make your goals, have your plan, stick to it. So if you're going to go practice something in the ring and you've got your toy, you're running for exhibition only perhaps, or you're practicing a start line stay, just because it went well, do not be tempted to now go run the whole course. Your goal was to practice your start line, and then you are going to run out of the ring and reward your dog. Do what you planned to do. If you have one way that you wanted to run the course and you see somebody afterwards running it differently than you, do not change your plan. It is a bad idea.
Done that. It doesn't work well.
It never works. Never works. So whatever your plan is, if you're planning on running the course and not stopping or not redoing anything, then do that.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I actually trained myself to be over attentive to knocked bars. Because in practice, whenever my dog knocked a bar, I stopped dead. And then when I got to the competition ring, guess what my brain fixated on? My plan after that was, no matter what happens, keep running.
Right.
And I actually have to ask now, when I finish a course, did we knock any bars? Because I worked really hard to stop stopping. And to stop trying to pay attention to that and just keep going, because once they're down, they're down. There's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
And becoming even distracted for half a second is half a second where I've lost all of my focus, and usually things get worse after that. Yes. So I had to practice how I wanted to be. I made my plan and I just followed through with it. I could make a new plan later if I want to. Right. I can find out if it worked or didn't work. Maybe it didn't work, but I followed it. Celebrate. That is so important. So many people, and me especially, I've got little bitty dogs. There are, at worst, there's us in our height category. I am first place every time. I can walk away with that first place ribbon no matter what, because it's only us. And so it's really easy to say, well, it was just us. Right? Or there was only 2 other dogs, so obviously I suck if I come in third. Or,
Right.
oh, the win was too easy because there was only 2 other dogs. Oh, we just got lucky. There wasn't
Right.
really a lot of competition. Well, we were the only ones entered. I sucked. And these are all things I've said to myself and I've
Mm,
said to other people. You
right.
know, that person who's competing with a border collie who has 80 other people in their class and they're jealous or upset that you got your second place ribbon, and you immediately diminish your own success by saying, well, you know, I was going to get a ribbon anyway. Boy, that's not fair to you. That's not
No.
fair to your other competitors,
Right.
because the reason you're there and the reason you got anything at all is because you showed up.
Right.
You showed up to do it. You trained your dog. You worked hard. You need to celebrate that as best you can. The other one is, you know, oh, I'm a really sucky handler, but my dog's really good, so they saved me. Well, somehow you both got around the course, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't your dog's idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't drive you. They didn't drive you there.
Right. It's true.
So, you know, good, bad, or ugly, and we've all had all of those.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you wouldn't be there if it wasn't for you, and you need to take some credit for that. The other one is, oh, well, this kind of course was designed for a, I don't know, big dog, small dog, herding dog, not herding dog. You know, oh, we were just lucky that it was a course that was good for us and not good for somebody else. Well, there's a reason that you were successful, and it's because you kept showing up to do the
Yeah.
training.
Yeah. Yeah. Nicely said.
Right. So I had to stop telling myself, well, then the one that saved me the most actually was, do you know why there's hardly any tiny lap dogs in agility? Is because tiny lap dogs are really hard.
To
They
play
are
agility with. Yeah.
really hard. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's only 4 of us. That's because only 4 of us showed up with our little tiny lap dogs and said, we got this. We're going to put the time in to make this happen. So the large classes of dogs that are just dying to do work. And again, that's a bit of that's again disrespectful to those people who've put in the time,
Mm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Everyone's got their own challenges, but if there's only 2 of you showed up
Right.
to do this really hard thing together.
Right.
And that has to be, you have to give yourself credit for that. And it's hard sometimes if you spent a lot of time dismissing your successes.
Right.
Seek a support system. Find your people. One of the tricks I use is I greet as many people as I can. I say hello or good morning. I don't make it about me if they don't respond. They're probably in their own heads. They're stressed out, or they showed up late, or they weren't prepared and they didn't even hear me. That's fine. They don't have to say hello. I'm going to say hello to them. I look at the gate sheet and I learn people's names. So if I see a run that I really enjoy or a behavior I really enjoy, like, look at that weave pull entry. The rest of the thing was a disaster, but that weave pull entry was amazing. I'll actually look and see what that person's name is, and I'll use their name and say, what a great weave pull entry.
Nice.
I try to make those connections, you know, and they might immediately, because a lot of us do this. Oh gosh, yeah, she took down like 7 jumps. And I'm going to let that one go. That's a them problem. That's a
Right.
negative self-talk cycle. I
Right.
do that too. I
Right.
dismiss people's praise.
Right.
I've learned to just say, yes, thank you. I might not even agree, but you can say, yes, thank you.
Right.
Love, that was a fabulous, fabulous dog walk contact. Thank you. It was. I'm going to throttle my dog later for ignoring every other thing I said out there. But yes, it was a beautiful, I'm
And
kidding.
I just want to clarify that you don't mean throttle as in physically.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But in your head, you're spinning a little bit about all the things that went
Yeah.
wrong, which
Yeah.
means you're likely also not going to see the things that went right. So taking those compliments is a big
Excellent point.
deal. And you might even want to let your trainer know that you're going to be there. A lot of people hide it for some reason, and I don't know why exactly. You might not want to invite your whole family to your first event. It may not go as you had hoped, even if the dog is brilliant in training. Yeah, that might be a bit too much pressure for you. But let your trainer maybe know that you're going to be somewhere. And I know most trainers, if they're able and it's nearby, they'll try to show up.
Mhm.
and support you, which is exciting. And it's
Mm.
fun to have that support. So just let them know you're going to be there. And at the very least, they might give you some tips, or they just might say, awesome, good for you.
Yeah.
I hope you do well.
Yeah.
If they don't say, awesome, good for you, I hope you do well, then my last point is that you should avoid people who have a mindset that isn't aligned with how you'd like yours to be.
Right.
We're so social, and we're so designed to include ourselves in a group, and that's biologically relevant, that
Hardwired.
we
Yeah.
need to protect ourselves by being in a group. And if the group you align yourself with are people who don't have the mindset that you would like to embody, then you should start to find people who do. I did my best to make friends with the people who ran their dogs the best to start with, because I wanted to absorb whatever
Right.
it was they were doing,
Right.
so that I could do things better, and maybe one day run how they run.
Right.
But that works for mindset too.
Mm.
If the people in that group are trash talking everybody else
Mm. Mm.
and complaining about everything, it doesn't, as they say, it doesn't serve you.
Right.
It doesn't serve you to be stuck in a group that's fixating on everything that's wrong, because it really won't help you to move forward and to meet your own goals,
Mm.
because you're focusing on things that are often beyond your control,
Right.
or things that just aren't important to begin with.
Right. Very
So
good.
find the people that you want to emulate, and they're going to be best friends with you whether they like it or not.
Well, uh, if you have the same kind of mindset alignment anyways, there's a cohesiveness that's there anyway. So it's unlikely that you wouldn't be able to forge a deeper relationship or friendship together.
And one of the byproducts of shifting your mindset at events like this is there's, I guess it depends on how you perceive it, there can be benefits and there can be fallout, because as you're developing a new mindset, you may find that the people you've hung out with before no longer align
Right.
with how you view things, and you may find it harder and harder to spend time with them.
Mm.
The advantage of shifting your mindset is that you will likely also attract people
Mm.
who appreciate your perspective and who would like to emulate you.
Right.
More people are watching than you might think, but not in a way that should upset you.
Right.
They will notice when you rise above,
Right.
and they will also notice when you react in the opposite way. Most of everything in the middle is all in your head.
Right.
But people gravitate towards people who, and this isn't to say that you should always just say good things and be positive. That's not what mindset is about, just
No,
being
I agree.
positive.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
even close.
Yeah.
Because again, you don't believe it.
Right.
Your
You're
brain
just tricking yourself.
won't believe it. You're trying to trick yourself, and you can't trick yourself. It doesn't work. But if you truly start to perceive things in a goal-oriented way and celebrate your successes and reset your focus, you will start to attract other people who enjoy that energy and want to be part of that experience with you. And I've experienced that myself. I've had people stop by to chat, and they're like, you've got a great vibe. And I can tell you that that's not what people said to me
Right. A few
way
years
back.
ago.
A
Yeah.
few years ago, that I just kind of wondered why nobody dropped by to chat.
Right.
And maybe I'm noticing it more, but I've also had people mention, like, yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, mindset work for the win.
Right. Well,
And
thank you
believe
so
it or not,
much.
our overall performance has improved as well. It seems when I fixed my own mindset, everything else
Right.
started to fall into place a little bit better. But thank
Right.
you so much for having me. I love talking about this stuff, so
Oh,
I'm really
well,
glad.
thank you for taking the time to share it with me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.